All right, recording. So this is Richard Nikoley, and I'm with Noah Ravoy in Portugal. I'm in Thailand, so it's 1 a.m. my time, 7 p.m. his, and we're waiting for Andy Curzon to come on in just a second. So
There's a
you
50% chance.
changed your background, Noah. No longer the black tarp.
Yeah, I thought this was a little bit nicer, more organic, and with the black background, I tended to look like I was a corpse. It didn't reflect the light well, so this looks a lot more like I'm a.
So Andy has just
Andy.
come on here. Let me. Where are you, Andy? Okay? Wait, let me put on gallery view. All right, there's Curzon. Hey,
and we have the stream of formal to info.
Yeah, we're already on record.
Muscle shirt.
Curzon, we're already on record. So don't say anything you wouldn't want to be published to the world. All right. So
I always assume somebody's listening. I have a Chinese phone.
Yeah. So anyway, let me just kind of try to frame this in the words of Curzon. So Andy and I have this kind of gig called Discussions. I mean, it's fucking pathetic. We're just on number 10 now, and it's been going for months. But we just kind of do it when we want to. And Andy had a good suggestion the other day. It's like, hey, you've been in Thailand for almost 3 months now. You totally changed your life. And let's get Noah on. I'm like, that's a brilliant idea, because I want Noah to weigh in on all my debauchery. I really do. But
tell the former minister all of your sins.
What?
Tell the former minister all of your sins.
Yeah. I'm going to confess all my sins. Anyway, but first I'm going to frame everything in two ways. So, the whole coronavirus scare thing, and I was in a beautiful tropical island called Koh Samui for the last week. It was just dying because of all the restrictions and closing down and everything. I'm like, well, if it's going to be dead, I'd rather be dead in a place where I at least know a few people. And I know quite a few people here in Chiang Mai, Thailand. It's 1 a.m. my time. It's 7 p.m. in Portugal, where Noah is, and 7 p.m. in that place that used to be called Great Britain, where Andy is, right? And now it's getting greater. There's Brexit, so I'm going to throw all these references that Andy hates, because he doesn't want to deal with any of this shit.
Oh no, nothing important. Never. No Trump. No coronavirus.
Never. Brexit. Right. Anyway, so I'm sitting here so I can pan kind of my. I moved into these digs since I'm going to stay here for a while until all of this stuff blows away. I rented this apartment today. It's swanky. It's Swiss designed, because I'm staying in a place that's owned by a Swiss guy, and he's an architect. And so it's incredibly awesome. And I'm renting it for $273 US per month, water and Wi-Fi included. I have to pay for electricity because you tend to run the AC a lot. But the electricity isn't going to be more than $20 a month. So yeah, do the math. So they have a hotel too. So they have apartments and they have a hotel. So the hotel is $850 baht a month, about $25. 825 baht a day, $25. But you get the daily, hotel housekeeping. So here at the apartment,
it's not worth it. If the way you're living.
Yeah. In 10 days, I'm ahead, right? So on that base, this is 9,000 baht a month. So 850 baht a day. In 10 days, I'm running it. I'm getting the next 2 weeks free in comparison. And I could.
What's your daily life like there at the moment? Is everyone as scared as they are in Europe out there of the scam? I mean, the scare?
It's hard to say. It's hard here in Thailand. the people, it's not a first world country, right? On the other hand, Thailand is interesting. It's a Buddhist country, but right next door, Vietnam, I mean, we had a war in Vietnam. Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, all colonized by the French, right? The other side, Myanmar and Malaysia, and British were heavily active in both those places. Of course, Singapore was the British colony. The Thais have never been colonized, right? So very interesting, and they're right in the center, but never colonized, right? They're simple people. But what I love about the country is that they have a very, very, very active economy. And what is very special to me is that although, of course, you go to Bangkok, there are plenty of old money, rich Thai people and all that have their BMWs. They have to pay 300% tax, by the way. So if you're in America, the cost of BMW costs them 3 times as much. And I use BMW just because I just sold my last one. but anyway, what I love is like there is the entrepreneurial spirit is huge here. Americans think of themselves as entrepreneurs. I mean, these people put them to shame, because a person will just put a cart together on a motorcycle kind of trolley and go serve food on the street. And there's no regulations to stop them. In America, it would be stop, zoning. Do you have health certificates? Here in Thailand, no. So the economy.
You can't mix nanny state and be entrepreneurial at the same time.
Exactly.
You have
so they are so entrepreneurial. I mean, most people are actually self-employed, right? Mm-hmm. Unlike, all these first world countries say, oh, we're entrepreneurs. Yeah. Okay, yeah, you got funding from a VC and did a great deal and all this stuff. But, what is really valuable to me and touches my heart, I have to say, is that in a country like this, people can be entrepreneurial, and it's not bullshit. It's not squalor. I mean, in some really dog shit countries that you go to, like particularly African countries, it's dog shit, right? Here, it is like, it's almost like perfect. I mean, you go out on the street any time of day, 24/7, really. And you can get excellent Thai food put together by a mama, and people aren't priced out. Nobody is priced out of the market. This is accessible to 99% of the population. So you're getting
a big part of that. I saw a documentary on Thailand. A big part of that is that it is not a high crime country. If you're in Africa, and I know Africans trying to start businesses in Africa, and everyone will prey on you, including your own family, and they'll rob your business blind. They'll take everything they can and give nothing in return. And from what I understand, from what I saw about Thailand, is that not only do they have the entrepreneurial spirit, but they have sufficient cultural cohesion and understanding of rules that they can have a fair game. And that allows people to succeed and allows people to get a return on their investment. And that encourages more people then to join. And so you have a very, the video I saw, the documentary, there was a lot of little kids starting companies. A kid would start making ice cream, or he would start.
And as we know, in the West, that's frowned upon. If you're 14 and you've got a business, of course you're being enslaved into work.
You have here in Thailand,
unless you work for a mass media company and spend 14 hours a day on set.
Here in Thailand, you have children of 4, 5, 6, 7 out peddling goods, right? And it's not like in Mexico. It's different. They're well dressed. They're almost like little business people. It's hilarious. The girls and boys and it's very cute, and it's not off-putting to me. Some of them actually speak English, and they come up and present themselves and ask you if you would like to buy, maybe look at what they want to sell. So it's really cool. And Thailand is still a monarchy, and the king has absolute control, but he almost never uses it, right? So then they have the understructure, right? And the Thais don't like King number 10. They call him King number 10. They loved his father. When I came to Thailand the first time was 1986, Pattaya Beach.
Were they on King 9 then, or which king were they on then?
They were on King 9, his father. The adoration for the king was absolute. They almost worshipped him, right? Now, not so much. However, I am in Thailand, so I'm going to respect their rules. And there is a thing called lèse majesté. And so I cannot, because I am in Thailand, I cannot say anything bad about the king. And I won't. I think if you go.
When in Rome, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Noah, how's everything going on? How's everything for you in Portugal regarding yourself and also obviously happenings, COVID and all that?
Yeah, so we're obviously in quarantine. Portugal's now, this is the second week of quarantine, and they did 1 week previous to that where the schools were closed. I think the school closing makes a lot of sense. I'd like to see schools permanently closed, but it has nothing to do with with coronavirus. I just like to see the government out of the school business. What's happened here, though, if you go to a hospital, they're completely empty.
Yeah.
So they have there's a couple of coronavirus outbreaks, but people have been pretty good about following the rules here, and so well that the government at first just asked us to stay home. The reason being is they didn't figure they would need to make a law, but everybody ended up at the beach. And so they said, please go home, don't stay at the beach. It's probably the safest place to be if you're going to be in a group, because you have the breeze and you have the salty water and the hot sun. The virus doesn't do well in that conditions. But everything's very quiet. People are very peaceful. I noticed last week I could hear domestic arguments because I'm overlooking a valley and it would echo up. You couldn't tell what they were saying, but they're arguing. This week, everyone's peaceful. I think they kind of figured out how to get along last week. And it's a very, they're Latins like Italians, but they're a very cool Latin. They're very calm people in general, the Portuguese. They will be very calm, and they will put up with things until they don't anymore, and then they'll just act. And so there's not a lot of, you don't know when it's coming, but it's been perfect. It's been very quiet.
Man,
for myself, I just miss going.
I want to interject because I did not get to complete. I wanted to frame this whole discussion in a very particular way. Okay, so there is everyone knows a gecko, right? A lizard, right? And typically, when I lived in Mexico, they're like this big. So in Thailand, you have these geckos that are like a foot long. And they are extremely vocal, and they're all over the place. You never see them because they're geckos, right? So, right, they blend in or whatever. I've never seen one. You just hear them. Say extremely. They're loud. They're so loud it carries for like 200 meters, right? So they will go all night long. I have them all. I was laughing before this.
What's the noise? What noise do they make?
What? They go like, and then 5 times. Pussy, 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 pussy. I shit you not. And so that's why you want to come to Thailand and live in Thailand.
Asian pussy.
Pussy, pussy. I've recorded it and I played it back, and I'm like, I've heard it like 1,000 times since I've been here
Put
2.5
that in
months. But all night long, pussy, pussy. Even if they're in distance, you still hear pussy, pussy. So I don't know what that means, but
Yeah.
Sort of a Thai word. We'll never know.
No, how's your business going affected by this now? Because I was actually speaking to my friend who's someone I know who's not so much a life coach as a psychotherapist, but they said their business hasn't been affected. They've been able to do stuff like FaceTime. How's your business, Noah, been affected by this?
All my business was always online, and so it's not been a problem. I have a couple of clients locally, but it's not hard to switch 10% of your clients to be online. Rather than many therapists, it's the other way around. They're 90% online and they have to switch that, 90% face-to-face and they have to switch that to be online. For myself, there was a small drop when things first kicked off because everyone kind of froze. And then I start hearing back from clients that had kind of dropped out because the thing is people will get enough help that they're not in pain. And then they're surviving, they're okay. They won't go to thriving. They don't make that leap. And then there's chaos and danger coming. I think I better get myself sharpened back up again. And so then they'll come back and get some advice. And a bunch of clients that are starting to date now, and a bunch of new clients as well, because I'm starting to get out more. I've got a regular show called the Patriarch Hour every Tuesday. And I've been on the Red Man group fairly regularly with Anthony Johnson and 21 Convention crew. So I'm starting to get my name out there more. So it's actually picking up. I think this will be almost certainly my best year. I did take some time off in January to finish my book. So I've written a book on agency, and it's we're just waiting for the artwork and the illustrations to be done. And when that's done, we're launching the book.
Great, absolutely, Noah. And it will always be a privilege to me to have introduced you into Anthony's sphere. I must say that it's not my thing anymore. I mean, any of it. But I know there are still many men who need help out there, and I cannot imagine another man who is better suited to both deliver the information to the men who need it and also detect all of the nonsense from the little children, of which there are many. And so that should be a prime focus to you as an elder man with now 3 children, a boy and 2 baby brother twins, just excellent. And I'm going to talk about because I want Noah to absolutely critique the fuck out of me later on when I tell him what I'm doing, and have him maybe explain why I'm from his perspective, why I'm doing it, and so on and so forth. But dude, you are the best. I mean, there's a lot of good guys in Anthony's circle, but for me to have helped to get you in there, and then for Anthony to recognize, I remember when you're speaking, Anthony looks at me, he says, he's good. That you were locked in at that point. So, man, ride that shit for all it's worth, dude.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to going 2 things this spring. I was looking forward to what you and I were thinking about doing, Andrew and Andy, and what we obviously can't do in quarantine.
And we're glad we didn't start on it as well, to be honest.
Yeah, it was for completely other reasons. It was mostly my failure to be able to follow through at the time was having some other issues, and that and the 21 and 22 convention have been postponed until next fall because of this coronavirus thing has changed how so many things are being done. I tweeted today that we're living in the coronaverse. It's the version of reality under the coronavirus, and it's almost like an alternate reality.
Let me interject. I'm going to say one fucking thing about this. Well, 2. First of all, it is
maybe three.
It is the most completely. This is This is the absolute worst thing that has ever happened to human civilization. I mean, there's been a lot of shit that's happened to human civilization, but we should be better than this. Number two, there are no excess deaths. Look all the stats. Look at every country. There's a website called Euromomo. You know, EUR. What is it? Euro?
No.
Euromoma.eu. They track the weekly death statistics for 12 countries. I think 12 in Europe. It's normal. In other words, all of these deaths
swallowed up by other symptoms
from COVID are deaths with COVID, not of COVID, right?
What people don't realize, that certificate.
Look, I'm going to say it right here. Donald Trump is fucked up. The whole entire world, has become a pathetic pandemic of whiny, sniveling little children in a dark corner who will trade liberty for security because they're so fucked. You know, I'll tell you how to solve this epidemic right now. Take away all smartphones from anyone under 40. That's what social media, and everyone is like an expert because they saw it on their fucking phone. When they didn't have phones, it was too bothersome to go on the computer and With phones, they like sit and have a coffee. Everybody's face in the phone, and they're all panicked. And I have a personal story about this as well, which I'll get into when I talk about my Thai young girl shit when I'm 59, because I want Noah to ring in on that. But Andy, you can't say anything.
Well, you know why? There's two things that I want to piggyback off what you just said. One of them is the excess deaths. This thing that says X number of people died with coronavirus is not a very good number, because we're talking about, an 89-year-old person that would have died next month anyway. They died 2 weeks early.
That is what the statistics say.
If I was 90 years old and I had coronavirus, I probably wouldn't even go to the doctor. I'd be like, I'm going to die at home because I don't want to waste my money of my kids through taxes. I'm pretty sure I had coronavirus earlier in the year. My wife works with Chinese kids and other people. She works at an international school with Chinese kids. And I got really sick right after she did. She got sick last week of December. I got sick about 4 days later with something where I couldn't breathe for 5 days. I had to be propped up on a 45-degree angle, and I kept almost passing out from not.
Were your symptoms similar to your wife's?
But hers were way, way less than mine. She never gets quite as sick as I do. I usually get more intense, but for a shorter period of time, and she'll get.
Same with me. Yeah.
I have very similar. So on the 14th of January, I flew out of SFO, and I flew to Qingdao, China, 3-hour stop for refueling, and then on to Kunming, where I had a 9-hour layover. So a half a day in China, and then a 2-hour flight to Chiang Mai, Thailand, with a plane load of Chinese tourists for the Chinese New Year. 10 days later, I developed the weirdest cold. I'm 59. I've had like dozens and dozens and dozens of rhinovirus colds, right? Typically start in the nose, and it's like, sneezing and this was different. This was different.
Yeah.
There was no nose. There's no nose. It was upper respiratory, and a production of mucus like I had never experienced in my life, almost choking. But so I hole up in my condo, a different place here in Chiang Mai, for like 2-3 days, just like gasping for air and choking, spitting it out, choking. I actually, here in Thailand, pharmacies are ubiquitous. There's like 3 on every block, right? And so you can get almost everything without seeing a doctor, or you just, and the pharmacists, they all speak very good English. So for that, I remember from USA, over the counter called Mucinex. So I looked it up. So I went in there and I got from the pharmacist the active ingredient, which I doubled the dose because Thais are small people. So I doubled the dose on that. And then I use a regular dose of Tylenol, which approximates Mucinex, and it worked brilliantly. So I cleared all of that. But then I get a follow-on, like persistent dry cough. I'm talking for a month, dry cough for a month.
That's what they say the main symptom of coronavirus is.
So I suspected that the dry cough, I mean, because a virus has a lifespan, right? A bacterial infection could fester for a long time. So I talked to my mom, who had a persistent dry cough. And she said, the doctor suspected it was a sinus infection, a follow-on bacterial sinus infection.
Well, bacteria and virus are very different things, right?
I know, yes, that's right. Yeah, because antibiotics don't work on viruses, right? But they do on bacteria. So I went to the pharmacist, I explained the symptoms, and she said, okay, here's the Z-Pack that they call it, right? Here's the brand name. Z-Pack is 550 baht, which is about $16, 5-day course. She says, here's the Thai one, same thing, 150 baht, which is like $4. So I took the Thai one, boom, cleared it right up, 5-day course, right? So I love here in Thailand that you can go to a pharmacist and get almost anything, really almost anything.
The other thing I wanted to mention that you said about the comorbidity thing, people are dying of something, but they also had coronavirus. Yeah. When you die, they will list all the complications and possibilities of how you died. So if you get in a car accident and you were also drinking at the time, you might get things like on there that you had alcohol poisoning. You didn't die of the alcohol poisoning. You died because your car, you ran your face into the wall or something. Right now, if you died in a car accident and they happen to test you for coronavirus and you've got it, they'll write that on the death certificate too. Then somebody's going through and searching the death certificates for the word coronavirus, and if that comes up in the certificate, they're counting that as a death.
Someone in my Facebook comments just like 2 hours ago put a brilliant little vignette that kind of really encapsulates this. Andy will love it. Because he's that kind of guy. So an 80-year-old guy, he's dying and he wants to end it, so he jumps to commit suicide from a 90-story building, and on his way down, there's this like conflagration with some guys, and the guy has a gun, and he like fires off a shot, and it just happens to go through the guy who's falling down through his heart. So the moral of the story is we need more gun control.
Yeah. Have you seen
that can be actually looked at in several different ways, right? So
yeah, there's a film directed by Paul Thomas Anderson called Magnolia, and I think the opening scene is actually the guy falling. Yeah.
I love that movie. Yeah, with Tom Cruise doing the. I love all Tom Cruise films. Even the one like
Cocktail, Top Gun,
Vanilla Sky, which everyone hates. I love that film. Right? I really like Tom Cruise because to me he's very calculating about which films he do, and they think the Magnolia and Vanilla Sky are not good movies. I think they're brilliant. I love both of them. So, and Top Gun, the repartee is coming up here in I think a few months.
Oh yeah. So and I'm curious why you guys think that people are are so soft right now that the fear of, you know, almost the same amount of chance you have of getting struck by lightning as you of dying of coronavirus, that is causing people to panic so much. Personally, I think.
Okay, so I have. Okay, before I tell you why, let me tell you my personal story here, which I'll expound on later. So you know what? I don't want to do that yet. I'll say it later. What I think, Noah, is that what it is has, and I said today, I'm like my loathing and disgust for the human race. I mean, like literally almost everybody, because I see this. Because this is the one good thing, I think, is it's worldwide. It's just not country driven. I mean, Belarus is the only country who's saying, no, we're not going to do anything. Let it run.
The Japanese apparently aren't doing anything. The Japanese decided, all the Japanese said was back in December, there might be a real bad virus coming around. We're not really sure how bad it is because we don't trust China, because we're Japan, and of course we don't trust China. Maybe you want to wear a face mask, and half the people wear a face mask anyway.
You know,
everybody.
Yeah. I mean,
that means they didn't spread it to each other. And they have almost zero deaths.
I lived in Japan from 1984 through 1989, 5 years. And even back then, people are always wearing face masks, you know, during the cold flu season, right? So
they say that that's a lot more to do with not spreading your own germs than getting other people's, isn't it? It's a social...
Which is why it wouldn't work in some...
Okay, Andy, here's the thing. It's social, but it's not Western. And here, and Yasuhiko actually did a laugh react when I posted this. It's like, yeah, I lived amongst ants and bees for 5 years, you know, or the Borg, right? So like I have zero, you know, okay, it's a different culture and everything, but their conformity to all this shit is totally anti-Western, totally anti-enlightenment, right? So, like I said, I would rather fucking die, and I don't even I don't call it a mask. I call it the Mao uniform. It makes everyone look the same, ugly and unattractive. It's a fucking Mao uniform.
Yeah,
Fuck
well, no,
I want to wear a siege mask all the time, but I think if I go outside, I'll get arrested. So,
yeah.
When you said the reason why, basically why are people reacting the way they are? The way I think about it is I break it down into the people I've heard who have reacted in this way. Oddly enough, and I will say openly, my dad. I called my dad today I spoke to him for the first time since coronavirus came big, and he's usually very, very chilled on these things. He's usually just he's the kind of guy who'd be ill and not complain. He just gets on with stuff. So I was expecting basically Richard's response. I was expecting that from my dad, and he was not like that at all. He just said, he's living in Virginia Water, which is sort of suburbia, it's like outside the center, and everyone's gone AWOL. His wife, so my stepmom's gone AWOL, and they're all sort of sold by this. And he basically gave me a line of, it's socially irresponsible to leave the house, wash your hands 12 times a day, do this, do that. And he was sort of checklisting things to tell his son. And that's very unlike him. But I was trying to think, okay, he's one person. Why is he doing that? And then there's another person. And then there's and I think, I don't think it's one cause. I think some people will always like whining. I call it, I call it rapport through whining. We sit here, I go, oh, life's crap. And you go, oh, life's crap. And we build rapport through whining. I despise that. But I'd say another reason would be, it's kind of odd. Some people watch hospital programs and death in order to feel better. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's an amalgamation of maybe three or four. What do you think?
I would say it's you're right. It's a couple of different things, and it will be different in the generations. But I thought about why it doesn't bother me, why it doesn't bother Richard and some of the other people that I know. And I thought about it, and I've had a bunch of close calls with death. And it gets to a point where you're like, yeah, if I die, I die. Yeah. I'm not really worried about it. I have my life sufficiently in order that if I die, everything will be fine. You know, not that I want to die, but I'm not afraid of it. And a lot of people do not have their life in any kind of an order where they're sufficiently, where they are sufficiently comfortable that if they die, they're ready to say, yeah, that's the last chapter of the book. I think that's a good place to finish the book if necessary. Okay. And go ahead, Richard.
All right. So that's it's great because it leads me into what I wanted to specifically talk to you about, Noah, and that is that, all right, so I sell everything, literally, my house, car, everything. I live in a 60-liter backpack in this place. Not bad, right? So I can pack up in 15 minutes and be gone, move to another place. Easy, right? If I need something like today, because it's an apartment, not a hotel, so I need some stuff. So I go and it costs me $15 to buy like some plates and utensils, you know, paper products, you know, so on, shower gel, a razor, you know, stuff that you need in the house, which I can just leave when I leave, and then you buy it the next place you are. I love the liberty of that. People don't understand how valuable that is. I have one bill, my cell phone. One bill. I have no mortgage, no rent, no power bill, no cell phone. Oh wait, cell phone and Netflix. I have two bills.
How much do you pay for Netflix a month? Oddly, just as a question.
It's like $12 a month, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
For their enhanced whatever service, and I didn't actually start watching Ozark because I was like just riffing off a bunch of shit, and so but I'll start that. So Andy's.
Oh, watch it. It's good. It's good. But that line that I quoted is just.
Yeah, that was
like,
a great line.
Let me go make a quick point on that, because the way I wrote that post, I don't know if you've seen it. No, basically, Navarro, who is a gangster, says to the wife of the protagonist, she's talking to him on the phone. They're sort of they're money laundering, and she thinks she's got a sort of psychological edge over the gangster. Let's call him. Well, sorry, he's not a gangster. He's a cartel leader called Navarro, and he says to her, "Can you do this?" And she goes, "Oh well, don't you trust me?" Thinking he's going to say, "Oh, of course I do." And he says, "I don't trust you. I trust my opinion of you."
Yeah.
I thought, like, how can such a, you know, a show, like, how can it come out with such a deep line? And it totally changed the way I looked at it. I woke up this morning thinking of that line, and so I wrote a post on it.
It's great.
Yeah, I read part of that, and I absolutely I didn't finish reading because I just noticed it before the conversation started here. And yeah, that's an interesting thing to be able to.
It's great. It's great because it's honest. Mm-hmm. And it says that it makes a point that judgments, that, you know, even judges in courts of law, they're if they do their best, they just follow the law. If you don't like it, you change the law, and they should judge differently. But they're supposed to be duty bound to objectively do the law. But in this case, you know, people judge too. But that quote shows that you judge, but it's probably very subjective, not objective.
What I noticed is when I'm doing business with someone, or I'm friends with someone, if my life is kind of moving in the same direction as them, so let's say we're both doing more X business, or we're doing, you know, they will, if there's a little niggle, they and me will kind of give each other more leeway. But if, let's say, you're a libertarian, and then suddenly you become an ANCAP or a property or whatever this thing is, and you're talking to your old libertarian friends or your old whatever friends, and you do a little niggle and they're just so willing to go, "Oh, fuck off, don't." And I suddenly think, I before I got quite irritated by this, and now I just think, no, it's just human nature. It's just the way we are. We think what they're doing with me there is they're sort of saying, it might not be trust per se, but they're basically saying, I want to spend like I value, what they're saying in some senses, I feel less close to you. I feel less bound with you. And the trust kind of dissipates. It's almost like trust is I mean, what do you think about all that now?
Yeah, I think the way I do it is I approach every new relationship the same way I would approach a wild animal. Okay. So when you approach a wild animal, you don't know what to expect. So you expect everything. On the other hand, you don't approach the wild animal in such a way as to break the trust initially. You don't attack, you know. You approach, you get a little closer, you see if the animal is friendly, and you build up into a rapport. And what a lot of people do is they will get too close too quick. You know, I call that a lack of emotional chastity. They meet people. I don't know if it's probably happened to you. Happens to anyone who's fairly charming. It's probably happened to both you guys. If you're a charming person, people will all of a sudden love bomb you. They'll come across something you've written, something you've done, and they'll love bomb you. They'll go too intense, too quickly, and you know that all that's going to happen at some point, you're going to say something they don't like, one of those little niggles, and all that love will turn to hate, and then they're going to want to burn you. And this is why if you approach them, always like wild animals are like that. They're really friendly until they bite.
If you take the extreme of that, the extreme of that is
Noah, as a blogger for a long time, who has had
I know you've had
much experience with, you know, I don't want to be too harsh and say sycophants. I'll say fans, right? But you get fan love, and all of a sudden they want to have a personal connection with you, but you don't know them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they come off as thinking like, because that you have affinities in terms of like thought and, you know, intellectualization and philosophy and so on, that like they're automatically your like buddy, and that you're just going to embrace them and everything. But it's like, hey, you know,
I've got a couple of things to say about that now.
I don't know you, right? And
yeah,
I've had to, but here my approach has been for many years, like with these, like, you know, I used to have my email open and everything, and guys would email me, and so, you know, most men, especially older, mature men, will just message you, will send you an email once in a while. They'll say, hey, I thought you might like this, which is perfect, right? That's what I want, right? And then you get typically younger men, just blah, 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 on and on, everything they think, boom, 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 boom. And my approach is to gently say, look, I appreciate your input and everything, but, you know, I can't deal with everything you tell me. You know, slow down, you know.
It's a bit of an autistic thing as well, isn't it? Like, I think it's quite a, like, autistic people that just know with what you were saying, if you take that to the extreme, let's call it the love bombing, and the process you described, people would diagnose, well, that's been diagnosed effectively as borderline personality disorder. I'm not saying they're the same thing. I'm saying that people who have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, they tend to be very, very quick emotionally, very, very quick in. And I used to say to people, I'm slow emotionally. And that doesn't mean I'm like backward. It just means that I learn to like and trust slowly. I learn to love slowly, and I lose it slowly as well. So I won't flip out on a 20-year friend and suddenly go, I never want to. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot more. And I think I think it's with maturity that grows more and more. I think you get slower. Slow is probably the wrong word, but like you get more cautious, but also more brave. Something like that.
That's how a man should.
Andy, you're gonna be awesome when you're 55.
But, you know, Andy, that's how a man should behave, and it should be our fathers that teach us this. I have men doing what you're saying, Richard, or I'll even have women doing it sometimes. I'm like, these are serious questions. We can either have some face-to-face discussions and deal with them, or go talk to your dad. Why don't you go talk to your dad about it? I've never had anyone go, yeah, that's a great idea. I'll go talk to my dad. They always say, I'm coming to you because I can't talk to my dad.
No, this is a very personal thing.
To your dad, they don't know how to talk to men because.
No, let me tell you something personal. It's not that personal, but it's just I had a feeling over the last few years. My sister always says to me, she says, "Oh, you always have great chats with Pa." We call him Pa, like Papa, the French word. And and I sort of thought, yeah, he's my dad. There you go. And then I noticed I probably see him once every 6 months or so. 2 or 3 times a year, maybe 4. And I'd go and see him, or we'd do stuff. And I noticed whenever I left him, I felt really good, and not left him as in as a relax. I felt like we'd shared a really good time. And it's your dad, fine. And then I called him today, and the feeling I had at the end of the conversation was like a mixture of kind of annoyance that he took this stance on the virus, but then still that same sense of peace of like, I just had a wicked conversation with my dad, even though the conversation itself wasn't really that, I didn't agree with him. And so maybe I've been lucky, or maybe I don't know, it's a weird personal thing to say, but I think the rapport I've had with my dad, the thing I can bring to him is he's sort of like a natural stoic. So everything to him is like practical, calm, and logical. And so it's sort of like I feel like I wouldn't say a more mature version of me, but more mature. He's got his wisdom strands that just shoot me to the ground. I can come to him with something, and he'll just calmly break it apart and just go, boom. And I'm just like, what the fuck? So obviously, not everyone's that privileged to have a dad.
Andy,
I will tell you.
Let me quibble with that a little bit. Not to criticize your father, but just your take on it. What has disappointed me the most in this whole thing is how easily people are willing to trade their liberty
for security,
for
apparent security.
Yeah, for the appearance of security, right? Even if the whole thing is okay, say it's even not a hoax. Say it's very dangerous, right? I still don't give a fuck. I'm like, look, if it kills me, it kills me. I'm a free man. I want my liberty. I want to go out and do what I want, and I want to have free association with people. I want everything that can be open to be open. And if you get it, you die. Well, that's fucking life, dude. It's nature, right? So we're at the point where, I tell this to people all the time. I'm like, you're trading liberty for security. Well, why don't we just lock everyone in jail cell? Jails are very secure. You eliminate almost all risks of life if you're locked up in a jail cell. Is that what you want? So what, I look around and I say, you're killing the world. You're killing the whole world, the economic world, because it's built up, right? And a lot of these people don't have capital to sustain for, much less a month or 2, but a few days, right? They're in dire straits. I'm like, you're just devastating the entire world for this thing, this fear, because you don't really know the data. Nobody.
Well, a few months ago, Richard, we had
a lot of it's crap. Even the Italians came out and said, shit, all these deaths chalked up to Corona. We can only seriously pinpoint Corona in 3 out of 100 cases. Right?
Richard, we had Dr. Casey on. Do you remember Dr. Jared Casey?
Yes.
So no, you might not have seen. He used to be the head of philosophy at the University of Dublin, and he wrote a letter to the God, I'm going to get it wrong. I don't know who he wrote the letter to, but it was someone very important in politics in Ireland, and I think it's coming out today. Actually, is today Tuesday?
Yeah.
And
my time.
It's basically saying in 3 words. It's a long letter. It's very interesting, but it's basically saying let people work. That's what he's saying. He's saying, there's a social responsibility. There's all these things going on, but crippling the economy by
work.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
isolate the people who are at risk.
Yes.
And
I
just like that the schools are shut down, but that's a completely different thing. But isolate the people that are at risk, and maybe have the schools stay closed down. But beyond that, why aren't people working? Like, I hear everyone that can work is working. If there's any possible way you can figure out how to work, everyone's working. A lot of people are, a lot of people here, because it's so expensive to travel, because fuel prices are ridiculous compared to income. People live close to their work. It's only the people who have to take public transport that are stuck, and that's just because public transport's shut down. or shut down or almost shut down, depending where you are. But it is the problem is that there's almost certainly something else behind this. There's either my take on it is that we're about to have a financial collapse anyway, and they've been looking for a few years for a soft collapse. Okay, right now, if we have a collapse while we still have a fair bit of resources. I'm pretty sure that Trump is going to fine somehow China for the costs of dealing with the coronavirus in the US. And the idea
through
is
tariffs, probably.
we owe you $5 trillion. No. You owe us $10 trillion. We'll cancel the 5 that you owe us, or that we owe you as collateral, and you'll have to pay us the other 5 trillion back, which they'll never get. But it's a way to cancel large amounts of debt. And I have a feeling the reason they're issuing so much money now is because they don't expect the US dollar to be a long-term, to exist in 5 years from now.
There's a political maxim, isn't it? Never let a tragedy go to waste.
I think that's exactly what it is. I think they've just been looking for something, and it's extremely expedient that it came out of China, because it's their fault. Those weirdo foreigners that eat bats. I mean, did you see all those videos suddenly pop up about them eating random animals? About Chinese eating random animals. They've been doing that for thousands of years, and it was not showing on YouTube constantly. Now the videos are popping up everywhere. I think it's a convenient excuse, because if you came, and I know politicians have told me this, they said we're on the verge of economic bankruptcy. I had a politician that was the head of finance for one of the European countries tell me that he says, I don't understand how the smaller, the pig countries of Portugal, Italy, Greece, Spain, I don't understand why we didn't go bankrupt 10 years ago. He says, we're doing stupid trickery to manage year by year. At some point, there'll be a collapse. He says, we need a soft collapse. Now, they're all talking about this soft collapse and sort of private, like I heard about it, and I'm not a politician, so it wasn't totally in the private. This is their opportunity to do a soft collapse. We still have all functioning infrastructure. We have all kinds of resources. We have, lots and lots of trained people. We can have a reset and come back from it very strong. If we allowed things to collapse completely, it might take another 5 to 10 years, but then we end up with a hard collapse where none of the companies survive the collapse. We end up with disorganization, and we end up with a lot worse off than we were before.
Can I just ask something? I don't know how you're seeing it in your head, but for me, there's a cycle of economic collapse. And by economic collapse, I don't mean per se, I mean currency-based, pound, euro, dollar, blah, 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 blah. That is a large result of the Federal Reserve, the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England, the European system and all that. So if we're talking about that, the predictions range, but somewhere between 2022 and 2026. After 2008, the collapse, it's not a mathematical certainty, but it's definitely, there are pathways. If we're talking about a collapse along, let's say, an oil collapse, or a more specialized collapse, that's a lot harder to predict. But basically, I can't see us getting through the 20s. We're now in the 20s. It's quite interesting. I can't see us getting through the 20s without another currency collapse. I don't want to get into an economic discussion, but basically, it's going to happen. And I think the last time it was subprime mortgages, it was this, when that was the excuse, when actually it's just a result of the money printing. This time, is it going to be coronavirus? I don't know.
Imagine this. So reframe economic collapse as economic recalculation. If we reframe it instead of a collapse as a calculation, and this is what a smart politician would be doing right now, is saying we're not undergoing a collapse. This is a recalculation. Things we thought were valuable, including currencies, aren't as valuable as we thought. And we have to recalculate the entire system. This will mean certain jobs that existed before are not going to exist in the future. A good example of that is I've talked to a lot of people that are in big companies that hate their own IT departments. I know a guy who founded a major IT company, and he hates that his company has, an HR, not IT. He hates that his company has an HR department. He'd love to fire the entire HR department. And I said, well, why don't you? You still are pretty important in the company, even though he sold most of his shares. And he says, I can't. He says, if you have a large company in Europe and you don't have an HR department, they'll come after you. They'll make up bullshit to ruin your business.
So what does an HR department do other than administration and hiring and firing? Like,
yeah, hiring and firing can be done by department chiefs, like
exactly.
it was done before the 80s. The purpose of the HR department is it's a make work program for women.
Yes.
That's why they're 90%.
Exactly.
You know what? No, I couldn't agree more.
Business will
it's a
tell you.
make work program for women to GSRRM all the guys in the company.
Yeah, I have to agree. I hate it, but I have to agree. Even though I want to push back against it, I can't. It's
no, and I should be correct. It's not a make work program for women. It's a make work for program for women who should be at home with their kids because they're not able to get a job anywhere else in the free market. That's what it is.
99% of the staff in an HR department is undesirable chicks. It is.
Yeah.
Which
now also you
segue.
Force. Yeah, you can't.
We can talk about stuff, but I really, really want to put this out there and get Noah's scorn or
what your behavior out there and out east.
My behavior.
Go on, hit us with it.
Tell me. Let's get into the debauchery.
All right, so let's get into the debauchery.
Turn on my trad.
I don't know. I know Andy read it, but I don't know if Noah read my Thailand number 2, the scorn, because on my blog, freetheanimal.com. So all right. So I want to frame this in a way that hopefully makes some sense. So I went through a divorce. I'm great friends with my wife. She actually, believe it or not, what I'm going to tell you in a bit, she gets a kick out of. We talked 2 hours on the phone the other day. She's asking me everything about how it works, whether you're going out with bar girls or whether you're going with university girls or, workaday girls like the barista or something like that. But the fact is I'm 59 years old. I don't think I look super bad for a 59-year-old. But the fact is, I come to Thailand and it's a Buddhist culture, not Christian. See, that's the first thing you have to understand. It's not Christian. There are no hang-ups, right? I've had an overnight with a 22-year-old chick who thought I was like 40 or 45. And in the morning we started talking. I picked her up in like a disco. Right? University chick, 22. And she was great. In the morning we're talking and she's like, how old are you? Like 59. She goes like, she's like, you're 14 years older than my father. And then she wanted to have sex again. Right? So you have to see, people judge based on their own framework, right? And either Christian, Judeo-Christian ethics framework. These people are Buddhists. They don't have hang-ups about that. And I will tell you that here in Thailand, for Phalang, which is F-A-R-A-N-G, Phalang is pronounced Phalang. The Thais pronounce it Phalang. It's foreigners, right? So you see many, especially if you go to resorts, you see 50 and 60 something, typically, sometimes even older, men with fucking hot, young Thai chicks, 20 somethings, 30 somethings. But we're talking like Miss category, Miss country, totally stunning. Right? And they're with these guys. But there is a very, very, very discernible formula to that. Every single guy you look at is at least 5'10" height. I'm 5'10", right? Typically ectomorph, not mesomorph frame, lean, short hair or bald, clean shaven, every single one. And my theory, my working theory is that in the calculation of the girl, she's like, all right, you get to have me on your arm and be proud. You have such a young, hot chick, right? But I want when people look to say, oh, I understand. Because these guys project, every single one projects like they're not a fuck up. They have authority, they've done well in life, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what she wants reciprocally out of the deal. What do you say, Noah?
Believe it or not, it boosts her social standing as well.
Yes.
Your white Western men are considered an upgrade for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, it just is. I mean,
they are, and it's so funny being in that class, isn't it?
Yeah, and so they know that if they date a successful Western man for a few years, they can then go and attract a top level Thai guy because their social standing has been boosted.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not a new thing. Marco Polo writes about this.
Mm-hmm.
He writes about certain Asian cultures that they would entertain foreigners, and the women that did that, their social standing would increase because they were considered now to be much better educated in the ways of the world, and therefore would make a better wife. And this is not a new thing. And I think you mentioned that there's the Christian hang-ups, but I think it goes even before that. Europeans have really had for a long time been quite monogamous, even before Christianity. And it's the most of the world views romantic relationships as termed and contractual. In Africa, you have term marriages. You're married for 5 years. Nobody gets married indefinitely. You're married for 5 years, or you're married for 10 years. And you're married for 5 years. You're expected to make a kid. There's an option to extend your contract.
That's actually, the first time I heard about that was from our mutual friend Megan. Well, I'll have to drop her name. And right before this, Andy's like, because I sent Megan a silly little email, which Andy laughed at. He said, should I invite her to this? And I said, go ahead. And I actually dropped her the link to this, but she wouldn't show up for this sort of thing. But she was the first one who introduced me to the idea of kind of a lease. You lease each other for a term. It's renewable, of course, but it's a very interesting idea. So rather than a divorce, just the lease ends, and if you don't want to renew it, then it's done, and nobody is harmed, right? It's like, okay, you move out of the building when the lease is done, all right?
Yeah, generally, in African termed marriages, they'll say something like, okay, it's a term of 5 years. Part of the term is that you get a certain amount of money at the end if you don't stay with me, and I want a son out of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in the West, we say, oh, that's not very romantic. That sounds so mercenary, so cold.
Yeah.
The reality is that we used to be, back when we had less divorces, we used to be a little more mercenary. We at least had some contracts. Contract marriage throughout most of the world was the way things went. Everybody kind of understood that this is an exchange. And I really push this hard with my clients to look at what we call euphemistically romantic relationships as a proper exchange. If you want someone to stick with you, you're going to have to be reciprocal with them. It's not some romantic thing that I've said certain magic words and now they'll stay. I said I do and they'll stay with me forever. Even though that is what we prefer in the West in general, it's just not the way it is. You have to keep earning the reciprocity with your partner if you want a healthy relationship. And I think a lot of other cultures, they recognize that more clearly. The Romanticism movement in the late 17th, early 18th century really messed up our sexual marketplace in the West.
All right, here's another interjection here. So here in Thailand, amongst us older Western dudes who have like young Thai chicks, we have a saying. We say, all their stories are exactly the same. But what I mean by that is that they're not exactly the same. They vary, but they're the same. In other words, all of them have been previously married or had a boyfriend, maybe one child, maybe two. Typically it's one or two. And a Thai guy that just, fools around and they eventually can't take it anymore. And so, they're not forced, but typically you have a ton of Thai women who are supporting themselves, 1, 2 children, father and mother, or a mother and a father, whatever. I mean, they're
well, they build a house back in their village at the same time.
Yeah. And so here's the thing, is that they like, I talk to these girls all the time because I want to try to get into their heads, like if I was Andy. And so, I ask them questions, and sometimes it offends them. They're like, you're asking me too much. But what it tends to boil down to is the ones who go for the status of a phalang, a foreigner. They will say, European, American, Canadian, Australian. That's what they like. And so many of them, even the chick I'm with now, she was with a Brazilian guy for 3 years. She's been to Rio, Sao Paulo, spent almost a year there. Three trips, 3 months each. Hates it, right? And he fucked around on her, right? And so here's what they tell me. The reason they like foreigners. Number one answer, all of them. Good heart. Good heart.
You know what that means?
They say that. They have good heart. They have good heart, right?
We keep our word.
What do they mean by heart? Like emotional connection.
Yes. Yeah. Someone who shows them they really have an emotional connection.
Well, and you show that.
But you haven't heard number 2 yet. Number 2 is, I like how they do boom boom.
Well, we don't need to. Well, there are a few obvious reasons behind that, but we don't need to go into that. Like
it's very big.
Literally, they all say the same thing: heart and boom boom. Yeah. And they use boom boom for sex.
Well, and the hard thing, that this is really a cultural thing. Most Western men take their commitments very, very seriously to women. Generally, nobody likes a cheater. Okay? Yeah. We kind of detest that. I mean, I won't do business with a guy who cheats on his wife. This is just not. We know if you cheat on his wife, he'll cheat on you, and this kind of stuff.
100%. 100% of the males in my family never cheat, and I would know if they did. My brothers and I, my father, my grandfather, and everything. I was with my ex-wife for 20 years, 3 years before we got married, and 17 years of marriage. I never cheated on her one single fucking time, and I can't stand guys who do. If you make a commitment, that's it, right?
But yeah, I get called by my friends.
If you want someone else, then you end the relationship first, and then you go on.
I sometimes say on Facebook the favorite things anyone ever my favorite things people have said to me or about me, and my second favorite is I've just completely forgotten what we're talking about. My favorite is, Andy, you make learning to love things an art. Yeah. My second favorite was, what were you just talking about? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Western men don't cheat.
Oh yeah, so my friend, my friend said in front of about 15 people, we were talking, and we were talking about loyalty, and he just said, Mitzi, mate, he stood up and he said, well, Andy is too loyal. and he had like serious face, and he was looking at everyone, and I thought that was such an amazing compliment. It's probably my second or third favorite things, and he meant it not as a compliment but as an observation. And he just said sort of, and like for me, I'm built of loyalty. I don't understand the concept of breaking loyalty. I just would not do it. Everyone knows.
You're an upper class man too. That's
it's almost like I respect determination above everything else, and I want to be Mr. Determination. I want to be Rafa Nadal. I want to be that hardworking guy who never stops. But really, my conscientiousness and my determination is probably 8 or 9 out of 10. You know, it's not in the top echelon. Whereas my loyalty is kind of like it's just there. It's just there. It's just part of me.
But you have to see your descent from upper class men. Upper class men achieve that state by fighting in small groups together. And when you are relying on a band of brothers for survival, you cannot tolerate any disloyalty. And so disloyal men would have been out of the group. They would never have gotten to the place your ancestors.
And they wouldn't have bred. The genes would have permeated, of course.
Yeah.
So I want to do a little part 3 here with Noah.
Yeah.
And so this is the most personal part of it. And that is that, you know, like I said, I sold everything in December. I was going to go be this digital nomad, go, you know, live here, da, da, da. And so the second night, after I'm in Chiang Mai, I meet this girl in a disco kind of thing, nightclub, right? You know, they're Thai and they see the Western guys. And so, you know, she comes up and she's like, hi, she approached me. She's 27 years old. And like I told you, she had her first daughter when she was 16 and second one when she was 17, right? But she's just awesome, right? She comes to me and she says, can I sit down? Because she jokes about this now. Because almost 3 months later, I said, okay, you have 1 minute. I said that to her. You have 1 minute. Right?
Yeah, that's the power play.
But
that's the power play. That was the right move.
That was a power play, the right move. And because it stuck in her head, right? Mm-hmm. I said 1 minute, right? Now she gives me shit now. Because she's a woman, she's a female, right? That goes without saying, right? And I'm dealing with the cultural differences and her irrational fear about this corona thing, and so I'm having to deal with that. But what I think in my mind, what I say, I have to check myself. I'm like, Richard, you're 59 years old, and you have like a fucking hot woman, and when I look at her, when I wake up in the morning and I see her face on that white pillow and that brown skin and that black hair contrasted with the white pillow and white sheet, that's pretty face. It's like, it's not great. It's not good. It's not great. It's not fantastic. It's thrilling. It's thrilling. So it's thrilling. So I've totally gone off the rails and done a crazy thing. It's ridiculously inexpensive, right? In terms of, the money I have saved and everything. So it's ridiculous. She lit her home. It's in this village where she grew up. Everybody knows her. When she says, they know me from when I'm little, right? And she has daughters, and they live there with the mom. And she started building a house like 4 years ago with the help of her Brazilian boyfriend that she had that didn't work out because he was just an asshole. He's a macho fucking asshole that, fucked around with her. And not only, he did it with her friends and shit like that, right? So really awful, awful, awful behavior. And she told me, she says, I can forgive once, maybe 2 times, not 5 times. So she left him, right? And so now I'm in a situation where I've committed for 3 months to support her her mother, and her 2 daughters. It's very inexpensive for me, but in their village where we should be. So I rented this apartment because I don't know how long this COVID thing is going to go, but it's not much money, so I can leave anytime I want. But at least I have a cool place. But I'm going to go like a rural, 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers away from the border of Cambodia in rural Thailand, 18 kilometers away from the nearest thing you could call a town or city, right? And I'm going to help finish this house. I'm going to teach a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old girl, Thai girl, to speak perfect English with heavy use of phonics so they get the pronunciation right, right? And she wants another baby, so I'm going to impregnate her at 59 years old with any luck. And my whole life just radically changed. And it seems crazy, but when I think of all the possibilities to be a father for 2 Thai girls and teach them perfect English and have a little baby for the first time in my life, it's the most thrilling thing that I can think of. What do you think, Noah?
I think this is amazing. You know, there's a surprisingly large number of men who are a lot younger than you who've just decided that basically they're old and now they're gonna die. You know,
Yeah.
They're just waiting to get old and dead. And you've decided I'm gonna make a whole new life for myself at 59 years old. And that takes a certain amount of courage, and it takes a certain amount of willingness to take, it's courage, willingness to take risks. And I'm very proud of you for doing that. And I think it's going to be very good for you.
Well,
there's an old trope that the best way to stay young is spend time with a young woman.
And here's a very critical aspect of that, which I have realized is that, I'm very lucky. I look quite young for 59.
Well, you take care of yourself too.
The thing is I don't that much. I'm just genetically gifted. You look at my 82-year-old.
Your hair's getting a bit long for the ties, isn't it? You need to get another haircut.
Well, yeah, getting a little bit long. But I'm genetically gifted. You look at my 82-year-old father, and my 82-year-old father looks like 65, and my 78-year-old mother looks like 60, right? So I have this gift, right? But I don't necessarily, I punish myself with booze, smoke. You saw me smoke and everything like that. But what I committed to myself is that going there and doing this and getting, on a daily basis with the daughters, I'm not going to smoke. I'm not going to smoke. I'm not going to drink around them. So that's like to me the great motivation. It's easy. That makes not lighting up easy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to smoke in front of these 2 girls ever, right? I'm never going to get drunk in front of these 2 girls ever, right? So that I found a way to help myself with reciprocity and helping someone else. So it's like, I said that I'm like, I should write a book. Hey, do you have an alcohol or addiction problem? If you're older, go to Thailand, get a young, hot Thai chick. You will cure everything that's wrong with you because you want her to be proud to stand next to you, just like you're proud to stand next to them.
Actually, it's also simpler than that in a way, like what Noah said, which is they've done loads of studies saying if you spend time with much older people, even people who go to old people's homes, look after for large swaths of the day, they look and feel older. And when they spend time with younger people, you look and feel young. It's like you having kids, Noah, will actually open your pathways in your brain to thinking of, you'll start watching Disney films, and you'll not necessarily Disney, but your mind will open up to younger processes, and
Yeah.
you will look younger. That's what, it's a strange thing.
When I was a child, I was the first child of my generation, and I had tons of older relatives. And when I say older, they were like my great grandparents' age. There was many of them. They had like 16 brothers and sisters, and the other one had 14, and so there was tons of that age, and many of them didn't have children for various reasons. And what ended up happening is I grew up around old people, and I didn't know anything about kids until I went to school. And people kept telling me, "You talk like an old person,
Yeah.
You talk like an old person. You seem like an old person." And that kind of stuck with me through most of my teen years. And now I'm 41 years old, and people think that I'm 10 years younger than I am, because now I spend a lot of time helping young people, and of course spending time with my kids. And you're absolutely right. It rebuilds you, rejuvenates you.
How are the twins, Noah? Give us a little.
They're doing so good. They're starting to crawl.
Really?
At quite 6 months
like
old.
4 or 5 months now?
Almost 6, not quite.
Yeah.
So they're getting on towards 6. They're solid lumps of flesh. Like they're just great big forearms on these little kids. The one that's a little bit stronger, he'll grab your fingers and you can pick him almost completely up off the bed by holding onto your fingers. So they're strong, they're healthy.
How is Levi handling it?
He loves the babies. He loves spending time with them. He is suffering a little bit because not only can we not go to the park or outside anymore.
He's not primary number one anymore. Right?
Yeah, like he used to get people's attention.
That's a manly lesson to teach him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had a conversation with him the other day, and I said, "You do understand that you're not the center of the universe, and that when you were little, your brothers got 100% of our attention. Your brothers will never get that. They will never."
It's a tough lesson for a kid to learn, isn't it? That you're not the center of the universe. Because I don't know when I learned it, but you definitely, as a kid, you think that it's a natural thought, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. No, it's natural, and it is very limiting to think you're the center of the universe. Mm-hmm. Because every problem, you must solve it. You must be the solver of every problem. You must be in on everything. You don't, it's great to be able to sit back and go, "Not my problem. I don't want anything to do with that. Let someone else deal with it." And if you think you're the center of the universe, that's a huge burden on your shoulders. It's not, people who think that are very often burnt out. They end up burnt out because, being the sun is a very difficult job. If you can be a planet orbiting, it's a lot easier.
Andy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Andy,
well, Richard,
wrap it up for us.
Okay, well, I mean, I was thinking that you could tell us something about Trump, or your views, or about something that I hate talking about, Richard, just to irk me, so you get something out of it.
Okay, so very disappointed, and I can't hide that. I've been a fan of Trump, and I think his Make America Great Again campaign was good. I appreciated him in all of his resistance to the Democrat and left onslaught. 3 years of trying to impeach him, and then they finally did it and didn't get it done. I'll put it this way, Eddie. When here's the thing. I was basically near epicenter here when the COVID thing came out. They called it coronavirus, that here in northern Thailand, very close to China, and so on. And I saw the whole thing developing. And I'm a generalist. I'm a deconstructor. I'm an integrator and a dot connector. I'm the farthest thing away from a specialist you will ever see in your life. I think specialization has its uses, but I think it's absolute death. And I think if you ask Yasuhiko about that, he would say the same thing, right? Specialization is for chumps. Just like, to me, you have to be widely taking in information, generalizing, and then you deconstruct, and then you reconstruct through integration, dot connecting, disparate things. People say, well, you can't, it's apples and oranges. No, it's not. No, it's not. I can connect apples and oranges. Trust me, I can do it. Right?
Specialists work for generalists almost always.
Exactly. I'm the general.
Our employees and the generalists are.
So here, I think Trump is, to a large extent. Here's what I don't understand. Here's where his pragmatism got him, and I think he's been chumped on this whole thing big time, right? Because it's like they made it global, right? So he can stand against China on trade, and he can do trade deals. He's a deal maker. He's been excellent at that. Excellent, right? When basically the entire world ganged up against him. I mean, there's this video that came out today by this German epidemiologist, open letter to the chancellor, where he goes point by point by point, and very curiously, every single point is exact same shit I've been saying for 2-3 weeks. Every point, right? That's how fucking good I am at this, right? And I have doctors in my threads, like, Nadolsky and all these doctors and everything. They're like, okay, you're so good, I'll trust your knowledge. I'm like, I come back at them. I said, you're exactly right. I am way ahead of you on clarity about this issue, right? That's what I say to them, and I am. It is a nothing burger. I've said that from almost day one, and I am very extremely disappointed in Trump for having gone down this road without saying, look,
okay, well, how would
wait for the data.
Trump has two weaknesses, right? Trump has two weaknesses. Beautiful women and germs. He's a mega germaphobe.
Really?
Oh, like Hitler was.
They tried beautiful women. That's
germaphobe, right?
They tried his other weakness.
Oh, that's quite cool. So maybe we could leave on this question, which is, it's like a binary question. It's a two-part, which is, let's say, for some reason you had the knowledge that this coronavirus happening, would last a month. And then on the other hand, you would know, for whatever reason, sure, that it would definitely last at least a year. How would you two act accordingly in one state compared to the other? I know Richard would hardly change, but...
Restate the question. I don't really...
on the one hand, in World A, you're being told that this stuff will be over in a month. And in World B, you're being told that it will definitely not get any better at all for at least a year. And you've got to kind of plan your life around that in simple terms. But what's the difference?
No, it's easy. It's easy. It's the same answer for both. You don't do fucking shit. You see. Here's the thing: an enlightened, libertarian-esque individual. The rule number one is you never trade liberty for security. Not an ounce, ever. Not a gram. Not a fucking gram. And we have people here. The thing is, the problem is I may never recover because I have such loathsome contempt for almost every other human being on the planet, present company excluded, that I may never recover because I've seen how people clamor for safety and security, literally giving away every liberty, right?
Yeah, you thought September 11th was bad.
This is so far from Enlightenment ideals that Western civilization came up with.
It's kind of like the same thing, though. No, I don't know if you agree. Like what Peterson used to say in his lectures, saying, it's about the Garden of Eden. Either you build the walls higher. Are you trying to keep the snake out, or are you trying to inoculate yourself against the snake? And basically, are you facing the issue?
I'm trying to find the snake so I can kill him.
Well, exactly. So you know, if you run away from the snake, there'll be another snake tomorrow.
All right.
If you learn how
now,
to fight again.
wait, I have to.
I want to answer that question just quickly. You said, was that me viewing it from the viewpoint of a Trump type leader, or me viewing it through my frame as reality?
Your frame is reality.
Okay. So in 1 month, I would just go with the flow, and because there's not a lot you can do. If it was a year, it's time to put the masks on and start causing some mayhem, getting your men together and causing some mayhem, because a year of nobody working means starvation at the end. And I got kids.
That is.
Oh, I mean, listen. If this lasts a year, I have to change my life radically.
Yeah, definitely. If this lasts a year, it might be more effective to pillage than it is to to try to work.
That is not going to happen. I mean, the pressure now is becoming intense. This will end within a month, and then something else will be in the news cycle. So that is not really my concern. I mean, people are practical enough, and as soon as all these, I said the way to cure coronavirus is take away. I said it before. Take away all the smartphones of people under 40. Boom. I mean, like when Black Jesus was president in 2009, and we had the swine flu epidemic that infected 1 billion people on the planet and killed 500,000. There was no outrage because we had Black Jesus as president, Messiah. And so, so I called this impeachment 2.0 very early on. I know what the political things are, and that was driven by the principal Western countries. All of the people like where I am in Thailand, I don't think they give a shit about Trump either way, but they just follow along with everyone else is doing, and Thais are not particularly smart people. That's not why. I don't live here because I think Thais are particularly smart people. I live here because I like the Buddhist culture as a country and the accessibility of. I love the way the simple, accessible economic system works here. But I have to, since you brought up the Garden of Eden, I wasn't going to do this. It's kind of crude.
Well, it was just kind of the same thing as with everything. It's like, I think I hate to male female it like I do with everything, but the female way is to protect and to hide and to fight another day, which in many cases a good short-term solution. But the men's version is to go through what you have to go through, and if you die, you die. But your kids will be protected. Do you know what I mean? It's the long. I'm not trying to sell men's as perfect and women's as wrong.
Look at the internet. I mean, here's the thing. And Noah might add something to this or something, because I don't really have a problem with the chicks. I understand how they are. They seek safety and security, right? It's normal. I mean, it would be odd if they didn't, right?
They're following.
But my problem is all of the pussy boys, for lack of a better term. I mean,
when women act like women, it is not a problem. When men act like, that's disgusting, and that is a problem. And then we have a societal problem. The reason we're having such a big problem with this is we have a society of mostly effeminate men.
Yes.
They've never suffered.
The large majority of males of the human species aren't men. They are trying to be as chick-like and white knighting as they possibly can.
Yeah, they've never suffered. They've never been in a dangerous situation in their life. You were a sailor for quite a while. Dangerous situations. You were trained how to deal with dangerous situations. I've heard you tell some of your stories.
It really goes far beyond that. I grew up around men. My grandfather was a Mormon from Idaho, and he came out to California to start a life with nothing, right? And he ended up paying for most of his 12 brothers and sisters to come out to California, and they all had good lives. He paid for marriages and stuff like that. became not a super rich man, but a very well-off man who owned properties and stuff like that. So that's what I grew up around, a male culture, and myself, my brothers are all just kind of fuck you kind of males. You can't take it. Fuck you. Get out, go. Yeah. Right. You know.
Well, we have this culture of men that they're more afraid of discomfort and dying than they are of genetic death. You know, like you're gonna die eventually anyway.
They're afraid to disagrey.
We're all gonna die.
They're afraid to disagree. They're afraid to disagree with a female. That's how fucking pathetic they are, right?
Yeah. And women hate that. Women want men to disagree with them. I mean, except for the very maladjusted ones, but who cares what they think? Women want men to disagree with them because women deep down inside know that they're way more neurotic than men, and they need, like the old Humphrey Bogart, not literally hitting women, but you know.
Oh, do you know what? Women cannot stand anxious guys. I mean, sexually, like a woman, even like if you show a high, a low threshold for anxiousness, as in you get anxious very easily and you maintain it, it's incredibly sexually unattractive to women. Like it's a very straight, because I've seen women actually go from "I find you attract," not me, to some other one. They go from behaving like "I find you attractive" to okay, this is to a very decent person who's just showing anxiousness, to sort of you're the friend type, through through even telling a story in an anxious manner. So if I tell you a story of a struggle I went through, I'm not going to cry about it, am I? I'm just going to explain. Whereas if I sit here kind of mawkishly going, it's not only kind of weird to us if we get over emotional. I kind of pull back, but actually women have the same thing when men do it.
Yeah.
You know why?
No, they do not. A man who. Okay, so it's weird. So I'm trying to learn this. The difference between the Thai woman Buddhist perspective. I actually have this friend, Sue, who was a thing early on, but now she's just a buddy. I actually posted about this on my Facebook earlier. Where I rented this apartment is like right next to her condo. So she saw me in the window and she snapped a picture of me and sent it to me. So I'm there sitting on the thing. Anyway, she's a friend. She's had a British boyfriend for 6 years. So her English, it's very unique. Her English is a British accent, right? And some words are extremely British.
Is this the girl you took photos of? Is this the girl that you've got lots of photos of?
Oh, did I send you her nudes? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
listen, shit. I don't have an embarrassment.
I told her only my brothers and my father saw this. But yeah, she's 35, never had kids, so she has the bod of a 25-year. It's unbelievable. But here's a funny thing.
And she'll remain 18 years old until she's 60, and then she'll suddenly become 105.
Yeah, no, I mean it's incredible. Her body is like fantastic. And it's common here.
Well, do you know what we could do also is we could have a chat, let's say later on in the coronavirus, a month time, 2 months, 3 months, and just basically talk about similar things we did today and see how differently our opinions have changed. I want to see if Rich's opinion changes.
And we're all going to show up
going, we should,
year on and look like, it's Mad Max. It's 10 years into Mad Max. We have to look at that.
Yeah. I mean, if gasoline.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for that chat. And we'll do this again soon. And what we can do is obviously postpone everything our-wise, but it's still on the cards in the mid long term.
Yeah, and I think after being stuck inside for so long, people are going to want to get out and get together and do something face to face.
Yeah. Perfect, guys. Thanks so much for your time, and I'll chat soon.
We'll rename it from social distancing to social closeness, because after all, we are social animals. That's the one thing I've laughed at all this thing. It's like, oh, come on. And it's only a techie sort who can come up with that sort of bullshit. Okay, so people are compliant, they're doing it for a while, but that can only go on so long. People need human connection, and they need touch. People need to touch each other. That's why men shake hands.
I mean, I don't even need to say there are studies in Sweden, I think it was, and Denmark, of kids. So basically, they had struggles, and whether it was war, I can't remember the exact thing, but they found that the child homes no, they didn't actually. They found kids kept dying, and then in one particular child's home, that none of the kids died, and they found out that the head nurse, was carrying all the kids, and like hugging them and stuff. So basically, that's good evidence to suggest that we're kind of hardwired for.
I mean, look, we're evolved from primates. Look at primates. Primates are touching each other all the time. We are social animals who like to touch each other. And of course,
I hope people don't quote you on that, Richard, out of context. We're social animals who like to touch each other.
And my advice is don't touch another human being, right?
The thing is, what I was going to say is it runs the whole spectrum. Men Western men shake hands. That's our way. Sometimes we hug, give a man hug, right?
We spar.
Like in Arab worlds, like even in France, men do the bisou, kiss on the cheek to each other. In Arab countries, men will hold hands, which seems like really fucking weird to us.
And in India as well, yeah.
Yeah. But the point is that is in our DNA, and this is why communism never worked. You can't reprogram human beings, their innate desires and their aspirations by means of social policy. But leftists always think you can. They won't stop. They won't never stop. They think that they can pass laws and enact social policy. And what they end up doing is creating civil wars because of it. And if this shit doesn't stop soon, in 3 months, we're going to be talking about dead people that didn't die of corona, right? And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that I think that Trump has bungled this whole thing. He should have stood up and said, this is probably a nothing burger, no bigger than anything else, like Belarus did. Let it run its course, blah, blah. Then he would have been a leader. But in this thing,
I honestly think that happened because he looked at his opposition that's going to run against him, and he said, like, I either got an outright communist or a guy who doesn't know where he is.
Yeah,
I got this thing in the bag. It doesn't matter what decision I make, I'll be fine. I'll make the most. He made the middle of the road decision.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah,
the first time where I have to honestly say, you know what, I don't like that, because I judge people by my own standards, and I know that it would have been impossible for me in that position to stand up and say anything but either I think this is not a big deal, or let's wait for more data. And because I think if they had the data that's available now, a month ago, it would have seemed insane. Because there is a video out now, I mentioned it before, about this German epidemiologist, open letter to the chancellor. Mm-hmm. Fucking devastating.
Add it to the video. Add the thing to the video.
Yeah, you have to watch it, Andy. I mean, it's fucking devastating. And if that sort of thought process was in play then, but excuse me, Corona. So if that
when one person coughs, 1,000 people.
I know. I've been out and I just clear my throat and I see people like adjust their masks. I mean, that's how fucking insane people are. And I never wear a mask. I call it the Mao uniform. makes.
All right, gents. Well, have a good evening, and thanks
All
so much
right.
for that.
All right. This is
Take
Sam.
care, man.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you later, boys.
Andy's the authority here. All right. All right. Let me stop the recording. Let's stay on for a second. Let me stop.